People that have woken up in bed with a stranger. What's your story? My roommate had a party. I woke up in the morning and there was a girl who had drunkenly snuck into my bed and fallen asleep. We woke up at pretty much the same time in the early AM. Both very confused. We talked for a minute and she insisted on taking a bathroom break, borrowing some PJs, and snuggling back to sleep for a while. It somehow just felt like the natural thing to do. We ended up dating for a while and the joke was that we had slept together before we met. At my brother and sister-in-law's in Brunswick, CL had been subtly flirty with me all night. We all were completely shit-faced on red wine, and my wife passed out on the sofa. I staggered off to bed. I awoke in the wee hours with a large, warm body fully pressed up against my back. I was immediately terrified it was CL, and I was going to have to either make a scene or have some serious splaining to do. Turns out it was brother-in-law's Rottweiler. I went back to sleep. Day after a rush party I woke up to an alarm that wasn't mine. Heard a voice to my left say it's 6, gotta go to work. Reached over and handed her the phone and pretended to go back to bed. She was putting her shoes on by the dorm door and said AWW thank you. Opened my eyes and apparently after blacking out and doing the deed I put a water bottle and granola bar in her shoe for work. Dunno what happened there. Lots of alcohol and weed at a party in a friend's place. I remember at some point I told people I needed to sleep and went to an empty room. The last thing I remember is this girl coming to bed and we started discussing the world's problems. I don't remember any other thing. The weirdest part was morning. We woke up, saw that we were both naked. Awesome. I told her I don't remember anything from the night, not even her name. We have a proper introduction. Go at it again because why not? Have breakfast outside. Then share a taxi home. We were living close and never saw each other again. I guess it felt weird for both of us. Was in college. Went out too hard on a Thursday night because I had no class the next day. Woke up in my own room to a girl standing there getting dressed. I was dumbfounded. She super casually put on her jacket, said I have to get to class, and left before I could even get a word out. I never saw her again. Tried to ask friends who I came home with. Everyone said I just disappeared. Her face is burned into my mind and now, 5 years later, I have no clue what happened or who I spent the night with. I was in Munich for Oktoberfest. Accommodation is really ducking expensive and in high demand. So I had my first night booked in a sleeping bag in a big communal tent. But for my subsequent nights I had gotten a bunk in a hostel dorm. My accommodation for that night was a rented air mattress and sleeping bag in tent with 7 other people. I'd arrived in Munich late in the evening and I didn't get to do much before bed. The campsite was pretty far from the festivities, so my plan was to just spend the night in the campsite, then check out first thing and get over to my hostel in the city center for the real fun to begin next day. The guy occupying the airbed next to me, by contrast, had clearly had a very crazy day and was about to give me a very crazy night. I'd spoken to him briefly when I arrived, or rather I tried to. I'm English and don't speak any French, while he was French and didn't speak any English, so we didn't have much to say to one another before I turned in for an early night to be ready for a big day tomorrow, and he went off to continue drinking. 1 AM. I'm fast asleep, snuggled into my sleeping bag, when I'm awakened by a violent tugging and struggling. I'm yanked bodily off my air mattress and onto the one next to me. Half asleep, confused, and frightened I realize that I'm now laying atop a complete bollocks naked French man. He's grabbing and pulling at my sleeping bag, still tightly wrapped around me, and he seems absolutely confused and uncomprehending of the fact that it's ducking occupied. Dazed and confused I scramble off his naked form and struggle back onto my own mattress. I'm staring in absolute confusion at him. What the duck? I whisper. His eyes, however, pass right through me, unseeing, unfocused. He's staring into some faraway place, seeking to understand why the sleeping bag has apparently crawled away on its own. Then he promptly passes out onto his bed, snoring within seconds. and still presenting his wedding tackle for all the world to admire. Well, WTF was I to do? So I rolled over and went back to sleep for 30 minutes. 1:30 am. I'm dragged from my bed a second time. The guy was pretty strong and pulled me across him once again. Get the duck off me, I demand in a stage whisper. I really don't want anyone else to wake up and find me entangled with him like this. He's tugging insistently at my sleeping bag, and this time I'm awake enough to realize what's going on. His sleeping bag has disappeared off to the same dimension as his clothes. It's the early hours of a brisk September morning and he's cold and trying to cover up. He thinks his duvet has slipped off and is too drunk to figure out why the duvet is fighting back and swearing at him in English. This time, after once again making my escape back to my own bed, I sit up and look around trying to locate his sleeping bag or clothes. I figure that if I find them for him then he'll leave me alone. They are nowhere in sight. I have no idea where the bag has gone, nor the clothes he was presumably wearing before coming to bed. His only possession that I can see is his backpack, which I wasn't going to go rummaging through. Before I can decide what to do, his snores roll once again across the tent. He's passed out again. Alright, I think. Surely it can't happen a third time. I thought wrong. Grab, drag, swear, struggle. No, you French duck. This is my sleeping bag. Mine. Get off me. But this time was different. His eyes could focus on me. He'd sobered up enough to realize that the sentient struggling duvet was actually an irate Englishman. He stared at me, bewilderment rolling around behind his eyes, and this time he spoke to me in French. I don't understand French, but even if I did, I'd bet money he didn't say anything intelligible. We engaged in a brief but heated argument that went nowhere. He was clearly very cold and shivering now. I watched him scramble around looking for his actual sleeping bag. I tried to talk to him, but he didn't seem to hear me. Then grabbed his backpack, pulled out a heavy coat, put it on, and collapsed back onto the bed, already asleep again. I waited a little while, this time, keeping an eye out, but eventually I fell asleep and slept undisturbed until I awoke to the light of the morning and the commotion of the tent's other occupants beginning their day. Frenchie was still sound asleep, still face down snoring into his mattress, still wearing his coat, and still presenting his fully naked ass to the world. We all politely ignored him, but after I dressed up did cover him with the sleeping bag that he'd fought so hard for during the night. Not woke up with one, but came home from primary school around 11 years of age to find a complete stranger in my bed. Being completely naive, thinking he was a family friend, I made us both sandwiches to give to him. I returned to my room to find him gone. I now look back at this with complete horror. My family finds it amusing that it took me years to tell my family about it. I was in college staying near campus and decided to go to a frat party. I decided to walk home before the liquor kicked in too much. By the time I got home I was blacking out. I barely made it. Got to my bed and passed out. Didn't even take my shoes off, lol. I woke up off and on throughout the night feeling some person next to me. I figured it was a girl I had been dating. She'd come over if she got scared at night or some to sleep at my place. I never thought much of it. She cuddled me that night and it felt amazing. Guys love being the little spoon sometimes. The sun woke me up and I decided to go pee. I remember having to step over her to get out the bed, losing my balance cause I was still drunk. I go pee, come back, and notice this is not the girl I'm dating. Also she's in bra panties. F. I then notice I only have boxers on. Don't remember getting undressed. My clothes are folded on my computer chair next to a half-eaten grilled cheese. I immediately go to my roommate's room to ask who TF she is. He's in bed with his girl. I woke him up and he said the girl claimed she knew me. I was afraid. I go back to the living area until she wakes up. Apparently she didn't have a ride home, and since she stayed far I drunkenly offered her a place to crash. She helped me walk home, unlocked the door for me cause I was out of it, undressed me, and folded my clothes. Then she made me grilled cheese cause I was drunkenly begging for one. I ate half of it and laid down. Initially she was on the couch, but said I was calling to her loudly like a banshee lol. She cuddled me until I fell asleep, then she fell asleep lol. I was embarrassed and thankful. She took care of me lol. I took her home and we laughed about it. We stayed friends for a long time. Hung out more than a few times. We were never more than friend because I was already dating someone. Sometimes I wonder if she was the one for me. I don't know how we lost touch. I don't even like grilled cheese. I know a guy who went home with a stranger. Went pee in the middle of the night naked. Went back to bed. Woke up to screaming. He had gone back to the wrong room and was naked in her mother's bed. Consider subscribing if you enjoyed this video, and if you want to see more of Reddit Universe.